Welcome to Snail Story, where every story unfolds slowly but gently, touches the deepest corners of your heart. Have you ever wondered, what would you do if life gave you one more chance to fix your biggest mistake? Whether your day has been heavy or peaceful, may this story offer you a moment of calm, or a quiet reminder that sometimes love is not about perfection, but about finding the courage to come back and begin again. Sometimes the hardest journeys lead to the most precious destinations. Join us as we follow Isabella, Ethan, Lily, and Chloe, a family who dared to heal, forgive, and hold on to each other through every storm. Golden Gate Park was bathed in sunlight that afternoon. The sunset cast a pale orange hue over the ancient eucalyptus trees, reflecting softly off the glossy black windows of a Porsche parked by the roadside. Inside the car, Isabella Carter sat upright on the beige leather seat, her eyes scanning every number on the screen of her tablet. Quarterly profit figures, complex financial indicators, upcoming deals waiting to be signed. The world she had ruled for nearly a decade. Isabella was now 34 years old. The founder and CEO of Aurora Capital Group, one of the fastest-growing private investment funds in San Francisco, she had built an entire financial empire with nothing but her bare hands. In the financial world, Isabella Carter was a name that inspired both fear and admiration. Yet deep inside her heart, there remained a persistent void, a void she had tried to bury for the past 5 years. Today, as usual, she was on her way to an important shareholders' meeting. But just as the driver stopped at a red light at the corner of John F. Kennedy Drive, something outside the window suddenly caught her eye. Right there, on an old wooden bench by the park, a man was sitting, gently rocking a baby stroller back and forth. Nearby, 2 little blonde twin girls were chasing a flock of pigeons, their laughter echoing through the evening light. Isabella froze. Despite the many years that had passed, she instantly recognized those shoulders, that familiar posture, and the way he ran his hand through his hair when deep in thought. Ethan Brooks. Isabella's heart clenched. In that moment, all surrounding sounds seemed to vanish, leaving only the scene before her eyes. 5 years. 5 years since that fateful day, when she quietly packed her belongings and left the small apartment in Brooklyn, abandoning Ethan and their infant twin daughters. No letter, no message. She simply disappeared. "Miss Carter, the light's green now." The driver's voice pulled her back to reality. But Isabella barely heard him. Her eyes remained fixed on the 2 children running into Ethan's embrace. Lily and Chloe. She whispered their names in her heart as though reciting a long-forgotten prayer. The girls had grown more than she imagined. Their golden curls shimmered under the sunlight, their large eyes sparkling brightly. One climbed onto the bench to sit beside their father, while the other clambered onto Ethan's shoulders, chattering with innocent excitement only children could have. Ethan smiled tenderly, his eyes filled with love, a smile Isabella hadn't seen in years. The scene was achingly beautiful, a happy family she had once turned her back on. The car slowly rolled forward with the traffic. Isabella turned her head, looking out the rear window, trying to hold on to the fading image. Her throat tightened, her eyes stung. For the past 5 years, she had always convinced herself that leaving was the best thing for them, that Ethan deserved a better mother for the girls, that she couldn't juggle both a billion-dollar career and raising 2 infants. She had chosen the easier path, running away from the responsibility she should have borne. But now, in just that fleeting moment, every rational shield crumbled. Her heart burst open. Hot tears streamed down her perfectly made-up cheeks, unexpected and unstoppable. "Miss Carter, are you all right?" The driver turned around, concerned. Isabella quickly wiped her tears, catching her own unfamiliar reflection in the rearview mirror. Makeup couldn't conceal the vulnerability ready to break through. "Turn back," she whispered. "Sorry." "You want to return to the park?" "Yes. Turn back immediately." The Porsche maneuvered swiftly through the congested traffic, but by the time they reached the parking lot by the park, the old bench was empty. Ethan and the girls had vanished into the crowds of San Francisco. Isabella sat silently in the car for 20 minutes, her eyes glued to that vacant spot, hoping the image of the father and daughters would somehow reappear. But only echoes remained. On the way home, watching the city lights blur outside the window, Isabella knew with absolute clarity the world she had painstakingly built was about to change forever. For the first time in 5 years, the woman who once walked away resolutely was now desperately searching for a way back. That night, Isabella's luxurious penthouse on the 42nd floor felt strangely cold. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the flickering lights of San Francisco in the distance, like lonely stars scattered across the sky. But no matter how dazzling the lights were, her mind was consumed by a single image: Ethan sitting on the wooden bench with the 2 blonde-haired little girls. Isabella had never imagined that in just a few fleeting seconds, the solid walls she had spent 5 years building could so easily begin to crumble. She had tried to convince herself that she left because she didn't want her children to grow up with a mother who only chased billion-dollar deals, leaving her family behind. But deep down, she had always been afraid of being an inadequate mother, afraid of failing her own family, and now, seeing the children she once carried inside her growing up so beautifully beside their single father, that guilt had turned into a sharp, throbbing pain. At precisely 5 a.m., Isabella took a deep breath. Her decision was made, with the same resolve she usually reserved for high-stakes business deals. She picked up her phone and dialed Leon Ramirez, the man people like her turned to when they needed things that money could easily buy: information. Leon was a former veteran investigator with the San Francisco Police Department before moving into private services. His voice was deep, steady, and always carried a hint of dry humor whenever he took on an assignment. "Miss Carter, what a surprise to hear your voice at this hour," Leon answered on the other end. "I need you to find someone," Isabella said directly. "This person must be quite important, or you wouldn't be calling me before sunrise." Leon chuckled softly. Isabella gripped the phone tightly, keeping her voice firm. "His name is Ethan Brooks. His former address was in Brooklyn, but he has since moved to San Francisco. He has twin daughters about 6 years old." Leon paused for a few seconds before replying, "Do you want me to find just his current location or everything?" "Everything," Isabella exhaled. "Current address, job, income, financial situation, daily habits, anything you can gather about his health as well." "How fast?" Leon asked. "Within 48 hours. Leon chuckled. "Your work pace never ceases to impress me." "All right, I'll get started right away." Exactly 36 hours later, Leon arrived at Aurora Capital's office carrying a thick folder in his hands. "This is everything you asked for," he said, placing the documents on the expensive walnut desk, his gaze softening as he noticed the tension in Isabella's eyes. Isabella opened the folder, each page pulling her deeper into the world she had missed for the past 5 years. Ethan was living in a small apartment in the Sunset District suburbs. He worked part-time as an art teacher at Magnolia Elementary School, a small public school in the city. His modest salary barely covered the minimum expenses for himself and the 2 girls, but it was the accompanying photos that truly took Isabella's breath away. Ethan sat with the 2 girls in their tiny kitchen, the old wooden dining table neatly arranged. One photo captured him helping Lily with her homework, another showed the 3 of them eating ice cream together on the apartment stairs. In others, he pushed the girls on the swings at the park, his eyes shining with pure love. Leon flipped a few more pages. He's never remarried. Rarely dates, actually. Nearly all his time is devoted to the children. Isabella's fingers gently squeezed the edge of the folder, a wave of bitterness swelling in her chest. "He's a wonderful father," Leon said softly. Isabella nodded, her voice barely audible. "I know." Leon lowered his voice even further. "There's one more thing. You may need to prepare yourself." He pulled out a stack of documents from Pacific Hope Medical Center from the file. Ethan was diagnosed with progressive muscular dystrophy 2 years ago. It's a degenerative muscle disease that worsens over time. He's currently undergoing an experimental treatment, but the cost reaches $18,000 per month. Isabella froze. She quickly flipped through the medical notes, scanning the expense figures, medications, and the packed treatment schedule. Beneath were bank account statements, nearly depleted. Leon continued. He sold off everything he had left to cover the treatment costs, making sure the children never had to go without. But financially, he's in a very precarious situation. Isabella bit her lip, a surge of regret crashing over her like a giant wave, drowning the last defenses within her heart. Leon met Isabella's eyes, finishing gently. He doesn't need pity, Isabella, but he definitely needs a miracle. Isabella closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them, her gaze had changed. No longer the cold CEO who only made profit-driven decisions, but a mother, a woman who once walked away, now ready to fight to make things right. I will bring that miracle to him, she said, for the first time in 5 years, with a firm determination unlike any before. Isabella sat motionless in the vast living room of her penthouse, the phone on the table burning her with its heavy silence. 10 times. That was how many times she had typed Ethan's number, only to delete it again. The hands that once held steady during billion-dollar negotiations were now trembling like a child facing their first mistake. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. I'm ready. This is the one battle I cannot afford to lose. On the 11th try, Isabella pressed the call button. Each ring echoed like the chaotic beating of her heart inside her chest. Hello? A deep, slightly husky, but unmistakably familiar male voice answered on the other end. Isabella shivered. It had been 5 years since she last heard that voice. Ethan, she whispered, as if even she couldn't bear to hear herself say it. A heavy silence fell. She could hear him breathing sharply, as if stunned. Isabella? Ethan repeated her name, his voice breaking, unable to believe his ears. My God, is this real? After 5 years? You're calling me? Isabella could feel the restrained fury in his voice, and she knew she deserved every bit of it. I know I have no right to expect you to take this call, but— There's no but, Isabella, Ethan cut her off, his voice rising, filled with the pain and anger he had buried for 5 years. You disappeared. No explanation, not even a note. You left me with 2 babies just 6 months old. Do you have any idea how many nights I struggled to get through? Isabella clutched the cushion in her hands, tears rolling down her cheeks. I know, or at least I thought I did, but after seeing you yesterday, I realized I never truly understood what you've endured. Ethan let out a bitter, hollow laugh. Oh, so you just happened to see us? For how long? Have you been watching us from afar? Like some play you once refused to be a part of? No, Ethan. Yesterday was the first time in all these years. I didn't dare look for you. I couldn't face my own mistakes. But when I saw you with the girls— Her voice broke. I realized I had lost what mattered most. Another long silence followed, stretching endlessly. Isabella closed her eyes, bracing for the cold rejection she feared. But then Ethan spoke, his voice dropping, as if wrestling fiercely within himself. Do you even know how the girls have grown up? Every time their friends asked why they didn't have a mother, I had to come up with hundreds of different reasons, just so they wouldn't feel abandoned. Isabella sobbed. I'm sorry. I am truly sorry. No words can erase the wound I've caused. Sorry doesn't bring back the 5 years we've lost, Isabella. A brief pause. Then Ethan continued. I'll give you one chance, but not to see the children right away. What they need is not a sudden appearance followed by another disappearance. Isabella's heart tightened, but she knew this was more than she had dared hope for. Thank you. Ethan. Tomorrow. 3 p.m., the small cafe across from Magnolia Elementary. Just you and me. No children, no negotiations, and if I feel you're not ready, this ends right there." "I understand. I'll be there." The call ended. The phone dropped into her palm like a heavy stone. Isabella sat quietly in her vast apartment, trembling for the first time in years as she stepped out of her comfort zone. She was no longer the powerful CEO. She was simply a guilty mother, desperately begging for a chance to return to the children she had once left behind. Tomorrow everything would be decided. The following afternoon, Isabella arrived at the small cafe across from Magnolia Elementary nearly 30 minutes early. She chose a corner table where she could see the front door, her hands unconsciously gripping the hot cup of tea, clinging to its fragile warmth as if it were her only source of courage. The room was warm, simply decorated, with a faint aroma of waffles lingering in the air, completely opposite from the cold conference rooms she was so used to. Yet nowhere had ever made her heart race like this. The clock struck 3 p.m., then 3:05 p.m. She wondered if Ethan had changed his mind at the last moment. Perhaps he had reconsidered, and she would deserve that. But just then, the door opened. Ethan walked in. He was thinner than he had been 5 years ago. His steps were slightly slower, his eyes still deep, but now shadowed with exhaustion. The fine lines at the corners of his eyes bore witness to countless sleepless nights, raising children and fighting illness. A simple gray coat draped over his frame. His eyes scanned the room, then settled on Isabella. That gaze left her momentarily, speechless. Ethan approached, pulled out the chair across from her, and sat down, keeping a careful distance. No smile, no greeting. "You still look the same," he spoke first, his voice low and hoarse. "You haven't changed much." Isabella swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice. "And you look tired." Ethan let out a half-bitter, half-sarcastic smile. 5 years raising 2 children alone. Exhaustion is the one thing I've mastered. The air between them grew heavy, like a dense fog. Isabella knew that any excuses would be meaningless now. "Ethan," she whispered softly, "I know I have no right to be here, but I want to make things right." Ethan leaned back slightly, his gaze sharp as a blade slicing through her last defenses. "Make things right?" he repeated. "How exactly, Isabella? By bringing expensive gifts for the girls? Paying tuition, hiring tutors, buying luxury toys? Do you think money can buy back 5 years that were lost?" His voice was restrained, but each word cut like a knife deeper into her guilt. Isabella's eyes filled with tears, but her gaze remained firm. "Not at all. I know money can't erase the pain I've caused, but I want a chance to be their mother. Truly, I was scared, weak, selfish, but I finally understand, Ethan. No success, nothing, can replace the absence of family." Ethan clasped his hands together, his shoulders trembling slightly. She saw the torment in his eyes. "Lily and Chloe," he spoke slowly. "They grew up, asking me about you every day. I've lied to them hundreds of times, telling them you were away on business, that you loved them but couldn't come home yet. I did it because I was afraid that if they knew the truth, their little hearts might never heal." Ethan's voice broke, catching in his throat. "Do you know what hurts the most? Every night when I read them bedtime stories, they look at me and whisper, 'I wish Mommy were here reading with Daddy.'" Isabella couldn't hold back anymore. Tears streamed down her cheeks. The pain Ethan had carried all these years was the harshest sentence she could ever receive. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I only ask for a chance to slowly earn back your trust and theirs." Ethan locked eyes with her, silent for a long while, as if weighing every fragment of conflicting emotion. Finally, he sighed, "I can't let you see them right away. They're too fragile, Isabella, especially Lily. She's very sensitive. One more heartbreak, and I don't know if she'll have the strength to recover." Isabella nodded, her voice trembling but sincere. "Then, let me start from afar. I'll accept any boundaries you set, As long as I can slowly step into their lives. Ethan narrowed his eyes, as if studying whether she had truly changed this time. After another long pause, he nodded gently. I'll give you one chance. But remember this, Isabella. If you walk away again, not only will you lose the girls forever, but you'll also never be able to forgive yourself. His voice softened, yet remained firm. A final warning. Isabella smiled through her tears. I know. And I won't leave again. 1 week after that tense meeting, Ethan sent Isabella a short message. Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Golden Gate Park, bench number 7. Just a few simple words, but they made Isabella's heart race all through the night before. She had asked herself hundreds of times, how would the children react? Would they recognize her? Would they resent her, ignore her, or simply see her as a stranger? That afternoon, Golden Gate Park glowed under the gentle light of early autumn. Isabella arrived nearly 30 minutes early, standing at a distance, leaning against an old eucalyptus tree, gripping her wool scarf as if holding on to the last bit of courage she had left. At the appointed time, she saw from afar Ethan approaching with the 2 little girls, Lily and Chloe. Lily, the older twin, clung tightly to her father's coat, her large eyes scanning the unfamiliar surroundings with caution. Chloe was completely different, skipping ahead, calling out to her father, "Daddy, hurry up! It's so nice today, look at the ducks!" Isabella's heart tightened as she saw her daughter's faces clearly for the first time in 5 long years. Both girls had inherited honey-colored curls and deep brown eyes, a perfect blend of herself and Ethan. Ethan noticed Isabella first. Their eyes met briefly. He gave a small nod, a signal of permission. Isabella took a deep breath, tried to keep her smile as natural as possible, and walked toward them. Her heart pounded wildly beneath her thin sweater. Ethan leaned down and spoke softly to the girls. "Sweethearts, today Daddy wants to introduce you to an old friend of his." Both girls looked up at the woman smiling gently in front of them. Lily's gaze was far more cautious than her sister's. Chloe spoke first, her smile radiant. "Hello, miss. Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" The innocent question caught both Ethan and Isabella by surprise. Ethan flushed slightly but quickly reassured her. "No, Chloe, this is an old friend Daddy knew a long time ago." Isabella let out a soft laugh, a mix of awkwardness and warmth, rising in her chest. "I'm very happy to meet both of you today." Chloe immediately clung to Isabella, her bright eyes sparkling. "Do you know how to push swings? Daddy's arms get so tired pushing us all the time." Lily remained behind, her sharp eyes observing Isabella carefully. She finally spoke, her voice small but cautious. "You look familiar." Isabella paused for a moment, her heart almost stopping. She bent down and gently answered, "Really? Maybe it's because we have many things in common." Lily stared deeply into her eyes, then unexpectedly asked, "Did you know me when I was just a tiny baby?" Isabella swallowed hard. This moment had arrived, sooner than she expected. Ethan gently squeezed Lily's shoulder, as if trying to prevent further questions that might weigh down the delicate atmosphere. But Isabella softly placed her hand over his, her eyes silently saying, "Let me face this." She bent closer to Lily, smiling tenderly. "You could say so, even though it's been a long time. I've never forgotten the brightness in your eyes." Lily tilted her head slightly, as if wrestling with scattered fragments of distant memories. But then she fell silent, asking no further questions, simply gripping her father's hand more tightly. Chloe eagerly pulled Isabella toward the playground, her voice cheerful. "Come on, miss. Push us, please. Daddy gets to rest for a little bit. Today." Isabella chuckled, her eyes glistening with emotion. "All right, my little princess." For the entire afternoon, Isabella felt as though she was living in the world she should have belonged to long ago. She pushed the swings for the girls, listened to Chloe chatter about school, friends, and her adorable sticker collection. Lily, though still reserved, slowly softened as she watched Isabella patiently listen to her sister, smiling genuinely at both of them. From a distance, Ethan sat quietly on a bench, his eyes following the three in front of him. For the first time in a very long while, a fragile glimmer of hope appeared on his face. The meeting ended as the sun dipped behind the trees. Chloe wrapped her arms around Isabella's legs, speaking innocently. "Miss, can you come play with us again tomorrow?" Isabella bent down, gently patting her soft, curly hair. "I would be very happy to see you both again." Lily also gave a small wave as they left, her eyes showing a hint of warmth for the first time. "Goodbye, miss." Just 2 simple words, but to Isabella, they were a ray of light shining through the darkness she had wandered for so long. Today was only the first step, but she knew. She had set foot on the path to truly becoming their mother again. 2 weeks after their first meeting, Ethan agreed to let Isabella gradually participate more in weekend activities with the girls. Though he still maintained a cautious distance, her steady presence slowly became a familiar routine for the children. That day, all 4 of them visited the butterfly sanctuary near the Golden Gate Bridge. Colorful butterflies fluttered against the clear blue sky, and the laughter of Lily and Chloe echoed brightly, making Isabella silently thankful for the chance to witness it all. But as the girls ran off to find the guide and collect stickers, Isabella turned back and caught sight of Ethan leaning against the bench, his face pale, lips tightly pressed together. "Ethan, are you okay?" Isabella asked softly, approaching him. He shook his head, trying to straighten up, but his hand gripped the edge of the bench as though he were fighting something inside his body. "It's nothing." He forced a smile, but the exhaustion was etched clearly on his face. "Just a little dizzy." "Don't hide it from me." Isabella's voice tightened. Ethan fell silent, but before he could answer, Lily suddenly returned, innocently revealing the secret the adults had tried to keep. "Daddy gets sick like that a lot. The doctor said it's some kind of muscle disease, so Daddy has to take these huge pills. One time he couldn't even walk." The child's innocent words pierced Isabella's heart like a dagger. Her hands turned cold, her entire body froze. She gently stroked Lily's hair, forcing a reassuring smile, though her eyes brimmed with tears. "Thank you for telling me, sweetheart. Now go enjoy the butterflies, okay? Daddy and I need to talk for a bit." As the girls wandered off, Isabella's gaze immediately locked onto Ethan. For the first time since their reunion, her voice was no longer that of a guilty woman begging for forgiveness, but of a mother standing before the greatest threat to her children. "Please, Ethan, tell me, what exactly is going on?" Ethan sighed, avoiding her eyes like a man who had grown too accustomed to bearing everything alone. "Progressive muscular dystrophy," he finally admitted. "The doctors diagnosed me 2 years ago." Isabella clutched her chest, as if his words had sucked all the air out of the world around her. "How long? Have you been hiding this from the girls? From yourself?" Ethan gave a bitter, hollow laugh. "I couldn't hide it for long. I just pretended to still have control. It started with a slight tremor in my hands, then muscle fatigue, and now, every morning when I wake up, I have to ask myself, what am I still capable of doing today?" His voice cracked. "Isabella, you can't understand what it feels like to look at your little girls, knowing you may not be there for them much longer. And then at night, fighting through medical bills, balancing every expense, just hoping for a little more time." She could no longer hold back her tears. "Why haven't you tried the new treatment? I know there are clinical trials that have shown promising results." Ethan shook his head, his eyes filled with deep helplessness. "Because that hope comes at a price. $18,000 a month, Isabella. Think about it. If the treatment fails, what will the girls have left except mountains of debt? I would rather spend the little time I have fully with them." Isabella felt her world crumbling around her. For the past 5 years, she had lived in luxury, surrounded by million-dollar deals, while the man standing before her sacrificed his health just to keep a warm home for the 2 children. "Did you ever think about asking me for help?" Her voice broke. "Even once?" Ethan clenched his jaw, his gaze distant. "After what you did, who could I turn to? I only knew I had to fight." For the girls. Isabella said nothing more. Her heart bled, but inside, her fear was slowly turning into strength. She knew she could no longer remain on the sidelines. Isabella reached out and grasped Ethan's now fragile hand. Ethan, you can't keep fighting alone. Not just for yourself, but for Lily and Chloe. They need you. They need their father during these years ahead. Ethan gently shook his head, but Isabella tightened her grip. I won't beg you anymore, but I will do what's right. I will be here every day, not only to be a mother to the girls, but to stand beside you in this fight. For the first time, Ethan's eyes reddened. He tried to smile, but his throat tightened. Isabella? Are you sure? Isabella looked straight at him, for the first time with absolute determination. I'm sure, because this time, I'm not running away. For many nights after that day, Isabella lay awake, unable to sleep. The deals that once kept her up negotiating through the night now seemed meaningless. Every time she closed her eyes, all she saw were the faces of Lily and Chloe and Ethan's weary figure fighting against his illness. She had already missed too much, but this time she wouldn't lose anything more. The following weekend, Isabella asked Ethan to meet privately at a small cafe near Pacific Hope Medical Center, where he quietly continued his treatments. Unlike their previous meeting, her eyes, this time held no desperation, only resolute determination. Ethan arrived a few minutes late. He still looked the same, the posture of a father struggling through each day. As soon as he sat down, Ethan spoke first. I think I know what you want to say. Then listen to me this time, Ethan, Isabella replied, wasting no time. She placed a thick folder in front of him. I've researched all the latest treatment options. Pacific Hope Medical has an expanded clinical trial. Gene therapy combined with third-generation enzymes. The rate of improved motor function has surpassed 65%. Ethan gave a tired, faint smile. I know those numbers, I've researched them too. But the cost is still $18,000 a month, Isabella. I can't afford it. And I won't leave the girls burdened with enormous debt if things don't work out. Isabella looked him straight in the eyes, her voice firm. I will cover all the treatment costs. Ethan closed his eyes, as if her words struck the deepest place of pride within him. Isabella, I can't let you do that. I don't want to become some responsibility born out of your pity. It's not pity, Isabella cut him off, her voice trembling slightly but unyielding. Ethan, this is what I should have done 5 years ago. I owe you, and I owe the girls, not just an apology, but a real responsibility. Ethan fell silent. His fingers unconsciously gripped the cooling cup of coffee. Isabella leaned slightly closer, her voice lowered. I know what you need. Not money, but certainty. The assurance that I won't disappear again, that I truly want to become a mother to Lily and Chloe, not for a few weeks or a few months, but for the rest of their lives. Ethan looked at her for a long time, his eyes weighing every shattered piece of their past. Isabella, he sighed, exhausted but sincere. I've kept the girls with me for 5 years, not only out of love, but out of fear. Fear that if you turned your back again, they would be broken forever. Isabella nodded, her voice breaking but steady. That's why I propose a deal. A deal? Ethan frowned. Yes, like any contract in the business world, except this time, I'm wagering my entire life. She paused, taking a deep breath. For the next 3 months, I will stay, fully involved in the girls' daily lives. School drop-offs and pickups, homework, cooking, bathing, bedtime, doctor visits with you. I will learn to be a real mother. No staff, no assistants, no one managing things behind the scenes like I used to live. 3 months, Ethan whispered. That's right. If after those 3 months you and the girls believe I'm truly ready, then I won't just offer financial help. I will officially step into this family as their mother, as your true partner. Ethan gazed deeply into her eyes, where both fear and a new spark of courage glowed for the first time. After a long pause, he slowly nodded. 3 months. 3 months, Isabella repeated. And if I fail, you have every right to close the door forever. For the first time, there was a genuine glimpse of hope between them. No more blame, no more torment. Only a commitment that both knew this had to be the last chance. Somewhere beyond the window, Lily and Chloe were happily playing in the small garden beside the hospital. Outside, the San Francisco sunset was beginning to fall, but within Isabella's heart, a brand new sun was starting to rise. The first day of the 3-month agreement began with chaos. Isabella woke up at 5 a.m. The first time in years she'd risen not for a board meeting or a multi-million-dollar deal, but to prepare breakfast for 2 6-year-old children. Ethan's kitchen was modest, nothing like the lavish penthouse kitchen she was used to, just a few pots, an old coffee maker, and some cereal boxes scattered across the shelves. The refrigerator was covered with colorful scribbles drawn by Lily and Chloe, drawings Isabella had missed during the past 5 years. She flipped through a beginner's cookbook, then glanced at the blue box of mac and cheese the girls loved. This can't possibly be harder than negotiating that Asian merger last year, she reassured herself. 30 minutes later, smoke rose from the pot, water spilled over the stove top, and the cheese sauce clumped like rubber. Isabella stared at the disaster helplessly and sighed. Just then, Lily and Chloe wandered into the kitchen, yawning. "What's that smell?" Chloe asked, rubbing her eyes. "It's a special breakfast?" Isabella forced a smile, trying to hide the smoky disaster behind her. Lily frowned at the mess, but said nothing. She had always been the observant one. In the end, Isabella placed 3 simple bowls of dry cereal on the table. The girls happily crunched away without complaint, as if they understood that today was her mother-in-training day. Then came the hair braiding, a challenge Isabella never imagined would be so daunting. "Daddy always braids our hair in the morning," Lily said calmly, holding out the brush. Isabella looked at their lightly curled hair, her head spinning. She pulled up YouTube tutorials and tried once, twice, then a third time, ending with 2 crooked but well-intentioned braids. "It's okay," Chloe giggled. "We call this adventure hair." Isabella laughed, feeling her first real moment of relief that day. Maybe things weren't as bad as she feared. But the real test began when she took them to school. Lily worried about a math test, while Chloe insisted on bringing her lucky stuffed bunny. Isabella drove while juggling roles as therapist and mediator for both girls. At the school gate, she met their homeroom teacher, Mrs. Sanders, an older woman with sharp but kind eyes. "Ms. Carter?" she asked gently. "Lily and Chloe told me. You're a new friend of the family." Isabella hesitated briefly. "Yes, I'm learning to be their mother." Mrs. Sanders smiled with understanding, but her gaze seemed to say, "Motherhood is the hardest job in the world." That afternoon, when, picking up the girls, another challenge awaited Isabella: homework. Lily struggled with multiplication. "I can't do it," she nearly cried. Isabella sat beside her, facing for the first time a sense of real helplessness. In major negotiations, she had persuaded some of the toughest CEOs in the world, but calming a frustrated 6-year-old was proving far more difficult. "It's okay, Lily," Isabella said softly. "Let's do it together. Mistakes are fine. We'll learn step by step." Lily looked up at her, eyes shimmering. It was the same look Ethan had given her that day in the park, part doubt, part desperate hope for trust. After nearly 30 minutes of patience, Lily finally completed the problem, smiling proudly to herself. "I did it, Mommy." The word Mommy slipped out unconsciously, leaving Isabella frozen. Though it was accidental, it was the sweetest sound she'd heard in years. She gently stroked Lily's hair, her voice trembling. "I'm so proud of you, Lily." As night fell and the girls drifted into sleep, Isabella stood in the small kitchen washing dishes beside Ethan. "Tired?" Ethan asked, watching her quietly. Isabella smiled for the first time genuinely as a real mother. I've never felt anything so exhausting and so joyful all at once. Ethan watched her for a long moment. In that instant, he knew. The woman standing before him was truly trying to step into the world he had protected alone for 5 years. For the first time in years, Isabella no longer felt like an outsider. She was truly learning to become a mother, through clumsy attempts, endless worries, and above all, a love that had never faded. 3 months passed more quickly than Isabella had expected. Each morning of school drop-offs, the clumsy dinners, in the small kitchen, the evenings filled with homework and bedtime stories. Each little piece of daily life gradually assembled into a picture she had never imagined herself being part of. And most importantly, she began to feel she was no longer an outsider in this family. That day, light winter rain gently veiled the streets of San Francisco. The drizzle formed a soft mist over the red and golden trees. After school, Isabella brought Lily and Chloe home earlier than usual. Ethan was resting in his room, exhausted from his latest round of intensive treatment. Though the doctors were optimistic about the early results, the journey ahead remained long. The girls pulled Isabella into the living room, which had transformed into their home art studio. "Mommy, sit here," Chloe chirped excitedly. Isabella froze for a brief moment, hearing the word "mommy" flow so naturally from Chloe's lips. The little girl didn't even realize the shift. She happily continued arranging colored paper and markers. Lily, as always, was more composed. She carefully stacked the drawing sheets, her sparkling brown eyes gazing at Isabella with quiet anticipation. "We have a surprise for you, Mommy," Lily said softly, her tone serious. Isabella's throat tightened. She sat down silently, her heart racing in her chest. The girls unfolded a large drawing they had spent the entire week creating. In the center was a picture of 4 people holding hands under the sun: Ethan, Isabella, Lily, and Chloe. At the top, written in crooked but loving childlike handwriting, were the words, "My family, Daddy, Mommy, Lily, and Chloe." Isabella's trembling hand reached out to touch the drawing, unable to hold back her tears. "It's beautiful, sweethearts," she whispered. Lily spoke again, this time with firm certainty. "I know you were just Daddy's friend at first, but now I want to call you Mommy, like Chloe already does." Chloe beamed and hugged Isabella tightly. "We want you to be our real mommy, not just a practice one, okay?" Their innocent words shattered every remaining wall in Isabella's heart. She wrapped her arms tightly around her 2 little angels, her tears falling onto their tiny shoulders. "Thank you. Thank you for giving me the chance to be your mommy." That evening, after tucking the girls into bed and quietly closing their door, Isabella returned to the living room where Ethan was reading through his medical files. Their eyes met. No words were needed. His gentle smile told Isabella that he already knew about the drawing. Ethan set the file down, his voice warm. "You've gone further than I ever dared hope." Isabella stepped closer, taking his hand, gently but firmly, for the first time. "It's not hope anymore, Ethan. This is our real family now." Ethan looked deeply into her eyes. In that moment, all the storms of the past seemed to dissolve. Between them no longer stood 2 people who had hurt each other, but 2 souls learning to forgive and rebuild a home from the fragments. Isabella lowered her head and whispered, "I can't promise everything will always be perfect, but I promise I will never leave the 3 of you again." Ethan smiled, his eyes glistening. "For the first time, I truly believe you." Outside the window, the gentle drizzle continued to fall, washing away the old pain and leaving within their small home a peace they had both fought so long and hard to finally find. Spring arrived in San Francisco, draping soft pink hues across the cherry blossom trees lining Golden Gate Park. The air was crisp, the sky a clear blue, as if inviting a brand new beginning for them all. Today was more special than any other. She After nearly a year of persistent treatment with the experimental protocol, Ethan's condition had shown unexpectedly positive results. The tremors in his hands had lessened, and his muscle function markers had improved. Although there was still a long road ahead, hope was no longer fragile. It had become something solid, something real. In their cozy apartment in Sunset District, now their true family home, the sound of laughter filled the air from early morning. Wearing a flowery apron awkwardly tied around her waist, Isabella was bustling about the kitchen with Lily and Chloe, making pancakes for a special weekend breakfast. White flour dusted the countertop and even their hair, but no one cared. The kitchen overflowed with laughter. Ethan leaned against the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, smiling as he watched. His eyes were soft, the gaze of a man who had finally found his home after so many losses. "Daddy, look!" Chloe squealed, holding up a crooked heart-shaped pancake. "This is a love pancake for Mommy!" Isabella laughed, wiping flour off her daughter's nose. "I think it's perfect. Mommy," Lily suddenly called out, "can we go to Golden Gate Park this afternoon? Just like the first day you met us." Isabella looked over at Ethan. They exchanged a glance of silent understanding, both touched by the sacred milestone they had long held in their hearts. That afternoon, the whole family strolled along the familiar path in the park. Bench number 7 still sat quietly beneath the eucalyptus tree, a silent witness to their long journey. Isabella gently held Lily's hand, while Ethan lifted Chloe onto his shoulders, as was their habit. The evening sun streamed through the leaves, casting a warm golden glow over them. As they passed the old bench, Isabella paused. "You know, girls," she began, her voice catching slightly. "It was right here, 1 year ago, that I saw you both again for the first time after many years. And from that moment on I knew. I never wanted to leave you again." Lily looked up at her, eyes shimmering. "You were scared, but you came back. Because you love us, right?" Isabella bent down, pulling her daughter into her arms. "That's right, Lily. I love you both more than anything in the world. And I always will." Chloe swung her legs playfully on Ethan's shoulders and chimed in, "And Daddy, too. We're a team. All of us." The 4 of them burst into laughter, their joy echoing through the peaceful park as the sun dipped lower. That night, after tucking the girls into bed, Isabella rested her head on Ethan's shoulder in the cozy living room. The soft glow of the lamp bathed the space in a warm, calming light. Ethan gently squeezed her hand. "I used to think maybe I'd be raising them alone for the rest of my life. But now I'm grateful that we never gave up." Isabella smiled, tears sparkling in her eyes. "Me too. Sometimes it takes losing almost everything to finally learn how to hold on to what truly matters. And we've held on," Ethan whispered. Isabella gazed around the small home where the girls slept soundly in the next room. From those early days of awkward breakfasts, tangled braids, and struggling with homework, she had become a mother. Not just in name, but in every hug, every lullaby, every peaceful night's sleep of those 2 children. The family she once feared had become her strongest foundation. Tomorrow, Isabella would return to managing Aurora Capital, but in a completely new way. No longer the invincible woman in the boardroom, but a mother who would stop everything just to be home in time to pick up her daughters, because in the end, what she had gained was not dazzling success out there, but something far more simple. A family, truly, forever. Perhaps the most precious lesson this story leaves behind is one of courage, the courage to face mistakes, and the grace of forgiveness. Sometimes, love does not arise from perfection, but from those who have stumbled, who dare to stand up again, to return, and to learn how to love once more through the simplest acts. Isabella had lost nearly everything because of fear and avoidance, but by choosing to face her mistakes and learning how to be a mother through the smallest, most ordinary things, she was able to find her family again. Ethan chose to forgive, not because he had forgotten the pain, but because the love he held for his daughters was far greater than his anger. and the two little girls with their pure and innocent hearts gave their mother a second chance through unconditional love. Because in the end, a family is not a place of perfection. It is where people choose to stay, to heal together, to grow together, and to never give up on one another despite the wounds of the past. And that was the journey of Isabella and Ethan. Not a perfect story, but a real one, where broken hearts learn to trust, to stay, and to love again. Because sometimes, true family isn't about where you start, but about choosing to walk together, no matter how many times life tries to pull you apart. If this story touched your heart, don't forget, share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to Snail Story for more heartfelt stories like this. And turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next beautiful journey. See you in the next story.